I'm s-
Oh,
Hello, we are here. Welcome. Good morning. Shall we get into it? Shall we get into it? Jennifer, what do you think?
I think we shall. I'm excited because
All right.
I love to work with you and we get to just go back and forth doing fun techniques today and that is a lot of fun.
All right. It's going to be fun. Remember, everyone, relax. This is meant to be fun and easy. And a reminder, there's a little gear icon in the YouTube screen. If you're getting more of a blurry feed, just make sure to click on that you're getting the highest resolution that your internet can provide to you. And now we're going to go down to the table. All right. So, okay, we're going to start out with ink smushing. This is literally one of my favorite things to do because it's so easy and you're going to get a different result every time. But I want to show you this really quick. If you don't have a glass surface like me, grab a stamp set. Take your acetate off of your stamp set. Put a piece of white cardstock behind it if you have a darker surface. And I'm going to do this for my second example just to show you how easy it is. All right. Now, it looks like Chris has no sound, but hopefully, Chris, that might be on your end. How is everyone doing with sound? If you can hear me, Chris, you might want to check your little gear, not gear, the little sound slider on YouTube. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Now, the colors that I have chosen today are just colors that come in kind of order on the color wheel. Actually, purple kind of goes into pinks, but all you want to make sure is that you have colors that blend together in some sort of analogous format, which is colors that follow one another on the color wheel. So blue, purple, green, blue, purple, for example, orange, yellow, red, red, orange, yellow, anything that goes together will be great. So this is my tree. And the fun thing is it's going to look different every time. So take your slick surface, and you can do this with ink pads as well. You do not need to have cubes. I'm just doing them because they're little. And here's what we're going to do. You got to have a water bottle, some sort of spritzer, and then I'm just going to keep a little stamp chamois here off to the side so that I can wipe away in between. And of course, a heat tool in between layers, okay? Okay, are there any boops in ink smushing? I mean, I could do this. Here we go. We're going to smush. You can drag. A lot of times I do what I call the potch technique. My daughter invented that word, potch, when she was 4 years old. But here we go. I'm making strips of color in order, okay? And I find with the cubes, if I pop down instead of swipe, it actually turns out a little bit better. But you're just creating a little area of color, right? Look at that. Now, the cardstock that I'm using is not watercolor paper, and that's okay as long as you have a heavy cardstock. This right here is actually Strathmore Bristol Smooth, and it's pretty substantial. But the thing with this technique is you don't have to have watercolor paper to do it, but if you do, you know what? You do you. All right, we're going to take our water, and you want to mist until the color basically starts moving. It starts to go like that, like a, and you can make that sound effect too. A little more, and you can see it move. Take your cardstock and lay it down. And then just kind of run your fingers over it like that. Let it take that color off your surface. And this is now, Jennifer, I'm getting nervous. This is where I get inky. And when you lift
Yeah,
it
good.
up,
Do it. Do it.
look at
Ah,
that.
look at
Isn't that
that.
pretty? Now you
And
can
one
take
thing to
that.
note is it always dries even better.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
And
it looks
it's
even
going
better
to
when
look
it's dry.
different every time. So I used most of this, and I like to wipe in between. I don't think it's because I'm a total neatnik, but maybe a little bit. Now you can take your heat tool. I'm going to use my little heat it tool and just facilitate the dry. Now, if you're using watercolor paper is designed to take water. Regular cardstock, not so much. So when I'm ink smushing with regular paper, I dry in between. And that is just because this paper is not really designed to take water. And so we just do this. get it going so that we are facilitating the dry. You can flip it over. Sometimes what I will do is I will hit it until it starts to flatten. I wish I had a side view camera so you could see this, but as soon as it goes back to flat, we're ready for the next color, okay? And then you look at what you got. Now this is actually very linear. I'm kind of surprised that it looks, because usually when I do this, it doesn't line up quite that well. But then we just go again. And you can be a little more random. Let's see if I can get it a little more random. I'm feeling very linear with this. Okay, and again, these colors just kind of work with each other on the color wheel. All right, we're going a little heavier here with the purple. Mist, and go again, like that. Now I'm gonna do it kind of I'm gonna drop it this way this time. Press, press. And when you lift it, now look at that. Little more water if it looks a little blotchy, and press. And every time you do this, it is going to get a different look when you press. And if you need to mist in between, like I'm doing, you can. And it doesn't matter
how bold it is
all the way to the edge, but look at that. Isn't that cool?
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Every time it's going to be different. Smushy do. All right.
Now, and you said you used regular cardstock?
This is basically, yes, this is not watercolor paper. This is Bristol, Strathmore Bristol Smooth. The Neenah Classic Crest 110 works really well for this technique.
But really a heavier weight cardstock, watercolor paper, something that can take the water.
Yeah, and I do have watercolor paper, and I have one that I really like, which is the one from Tim Holtz. I really like his distress watercolor paper. Mm-hmm. But I just thought
today, you get a little different look between the watercolor paper and cardstock. So that's something that you can experiment, later on as you work on some of these techniques. I'm actually going to demonstrate with the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. So that's perfect.
And that is perfect. So you can see already it looks like this. But I mean, if you look at my little tree here, it looks completely different than this time. I mean, the colors are the same. So that's the basic technique. And you can keep layering this on as many times as you want. But for the next, so that's the basic technique. And I will say, the more times you do it, the deeper the color gets, the deeper it all looks. And you can do this with any inks, distress inks, oxides, whatever you have, right? And it just will get more layered. It's very dreamy. And when you do this too, like with colors like this, it's great for like a galaxy. Love that. Mm-hmm. So that is the technique. And what I'm going to do for the second one, I'm going to bring in, you can't really see it, but it's a piece of acetate. I guess I could get cardstock, but you can see the color. If you don't have glass, grab some acetate from a package. I'm going to tape it down just so I can see where it is. And Jennifer, this is where I'm going to invite you to join. There she is. Look at Jennifer. And I'm going to let Jennifer also explain some, because see, now she has different colors there, which is pretty cool. And that way you can kind of get that idea of how it's going to look a little different. So I'm just taping my acetate in place so that I can visually see where it is. So this will work too. Any slick surface, but using a stamp package is so easy. All right. So I'm setting this aside and I'm going to let it dry. Now I'm going to get my next one and I'm going to repeat the process. So let's do it right here on the acetate. Now here's the thing. It'll look a little different depending on whatever surface you're picking this up from. But I just wanted to do this on the plastic because not everybody has a glass mat. Yeah. Look at us, Brianne. Me and Jennifer McGuire getting inky together. What the heck?
Yeah. We just got to get Christina in on it next time. And so now if you want to try this technique, now's the time to try it. Kathy's demonstrating on a piece of acetate, and I'm going to show a little variation once she's done, because I don't want to interfere with her.
What are you doing? You talk about your variation, because I'm doing the same thing just on a piece of acetate.
Well, I'm doing a few changes. In my sprayer, I put some Perfect Pearl pigment powder, So this will see how it's kind of a pearly water. Can you see that pearly swirling around in there? So that way my background will have a little shimmer to it. So I put about half a teaspoon in this. I've actually had this for years, and I just refill it with more water and Perfect Pearl. And when you get it, every time you use it, you shake it, and I've never had it get clogged. And this is just a fun alternative to any technique that requires water. So what Kathy's doing, she could put a little Perfect Pearl in there and it gives some shimmer. So that's why my water looks pearly.
And I will say
that's one variation.
Look at this. This looks totally different already, and it's gorgeous. Also, if you get liquid pooling on the edge, just sop it up with a cloth, or you can just sop off the edges. And then again, I'm going to wipe this because I'm going to dry and do another layer. Oh, that's a good question, Jennifer. Do you see that? How much? Oh, there you go. All right.
Yep. I put about half a teaspoon, but honestly, I used to put in more, and it's fine. So you can put in more, you can put in less. It's totally up to you. Now for mine, instead of doing what Kathy did, where she put the ink on her work surface, I'm actually going to put my ink onto an acrylic block and put it on that way. And this will give you a splotchier look. So I just am demonstrating, it's the same thing. I'm just using, this kind of gives you a little, somewhat more control. So I have my die cut adhered. I just put temporary adhesive on the back onto my work surface, so it just stays put. And this is the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. So it'll take the color a little bit different than Kathy's. And I have a mix of inks just to prove to you that really you don't have to use Distress or a certain type. I've got a few different inks here.
Oh, I love that, Jennifer. And I'm going to go a little heavier, I think, up here with my pink this time. And maybe just a little darker with my orchid. That's the other fun thing about this. Between every layer, just take a look at what you're doing and say, all right, where would I like more color? Then just remember you're doing it in that sort of flip over area, and you can really affect what you're doing in terms of where the color's landing. And repeat. Oh, Jennifer, that's cool, doing it on the block. I love that.
Another thing you can do if you don't have an acrylic block is use your acetate, put the ink on there and kind of dab in different areas, which I might end up doing here. But I wanted kind of more of a splotchy look, and see how I can kind of control where those splotches go a little more. If you use a smaller block, you can have even more control. As far as Perfect Pearls, if you use Perfect Pearls, if they're mixed in water like this, it really doesn't rub off much because it has a built-in fixative. So you can, you don't really have to worry about it. I would not use a fixative on this. All right, I'm going to heat set. I like to stop and heat set and then put another layer on. Because if you keep adding color while it's wet, it's going to keep mixing. But if you heat set, you can put another layer on and it doesn't mix. Oh, Kathy, that's beautiful. Ooh.
And yeah, I'm heat setting off to the side just because I didn't want to heat set on my acetate because I'm not sure, well, I'm not sure what would happen there. And I'm just going to put down a little more pink that's bright and a little more purple that's dark. So you just keep going until you get the look that you like. Oh, I love this though. And again, these panels look different every time. And you can do this, you know, when you're just like, not having the mojo, right? Just get out some colors, smush them. You can drag, pick up that color, and then you have a panel. But I like what Jennifer's doing because it actually allows you to place with more precision. But see, that's Jennifer's mind. I love that, Jennifer. That's so smart.
Honestly, Kathy, it's because Jennifer has control issues. So this gives me a little more control. So you can see here, do you see those little dots? That's because I had some ink on my block that's splotchy. I didn't add a whole lot of water, and that will allow you to get those little dots to kind of build up. It's totally whatever look you want to achieve. Use less water if you want it more splotchy. Use more water if you want it smoother and blended.
That is fantastic. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do just one here to get maybe, so I smushed down and I'm going to just get a little and see. But yeah, the Tim Holtz, oh, look at that. That's super cool, Jen. Woo! Well, there you go. Oh, I love it. So yeah, smushing. I saw someone say manicure goals. I did text Jennifer earlier in the week and said, what color are we wearing? So we may have coordinated. All right.
So here, I thought I'd also show you can do this on the acetate too. So I want some splotches of this. So I'm putting of the darker. So I'm just putting, you can see there's not a whole lot of ink on there. Just a little spritz. See how it's kind of splotchy on here? And then if I just kind of curl this up a bit, I can kind of put some of the little splotches in different areas.
See, now both of these look very different. I mean, not very different, but you can see you get a different look every time. Of course, you know, we're going to talk about spattering later as well. Oh, Amy, that's a good question. I do think the silicone matte versus that glass matte, it does give you a different look. And I'm not sure the exact reason. Maybe because that matte that Tim has, that craft matte, it has a different texture to it than like a smooth glass surface. So I know that it will give you a slightly different look. So, but really, I mean, these are, you know, this one was done on acetate, this one was done on glass. I do think this is a little cloudier looking, considering I only did 2 layers on this. But I think part of the fun is that you don't know what you're going to get when you start. Now, for people who are control freaks, like Jennifer and myself, sometimes that can be a little hard to do. But I'm telling you, I never did stuff like this when I was a scrapbooker. But once I started making cards, I thought, hey, I can get messy and have some fun. So, yeah. Christina did it without getting ink on her fingers. Congratulations, Christina. You are getting, oh, look at the pearls.
It's hard to see the shimmer, but man, when you get it in the right light, it's just a fun alternative.
And I'm going to share my final tip with you. Once these are, I know they're dry enough, this is something I do when I make things. They're not going to be perfectly flat, right? Especially not if you're using cardstock. I keep this book in my craft room, and I always put any panel into my book. I layer them in, go dog go. I put it on the floor. I put a die cut machine on top, and I just forget about them while I move on to the next crafty thing. So there you go.
What I like to do is I will run it through a laminator, a heat laminator, and it'll flatten it. Or you just put, you could put double-sided adhesive sheet to cover the back, and that will just glue it flat. So any of those options work well.
Very smart, Jen. Very smart.
Monkey hands.
Yay!
All right. That was fun.
Minutes. Done.
You could, Leah asked, you could definitely use mica spray for that. So where she put ink on her acetate or her glass work surface and sprayed water, you could just spray your mica spray, any of your stains, any kind of sprays, really. Spray it on your work surface. You don't always need to add water. It just depends on how much of a watercolor look you want, and do the same technique. So it'd be beautiful if, like, Kathy did those pink and purple backgrounds. She could go in like with a Tim Holtz purple Distress mica stain spray and add a little bit of that on top doing the smushing. So you can always use your sprays for smushing, not just for spraying.
That would be amazing. Jennifer, I see a question. What point did you add the Perfect Pearl spray?
Okay, so I did, I keep this with Perfect Pearls in it. So I have this pearlized water all the time. I put this in years ago. I just refilled it yesterday with a little more. And every time Kathy would have used water, I use this instead. So the whole time I use this instead of water. If you have a shimmer, like a clear shimmer spray, you could use that too. But it's just a way to add some shimmer to it. So the exact same thing as Kathy, I just use this instead of regular water.
Okay.
So there we have it.
Yay.
Awesome. How fun.
That one and done. And remember too, you can come back and watch this because the 20-minute segments might seem a little fast at first, but
yep,
we got you. You can come back. You can hit pause. You can resume. So yeah.
Yeah, we just wanted to kind of get your hands inky and play along. Estella, yes, you could put it between your cutting plates and run it through. I'm not sure if that would flatten it enough, but I know that some people have done that. Totally up to you. Whatever you want. Again, if you put enough glue on the back, it'll flatten when you put it on something.
That's true.
The perfect, can you show the original pearl again? Used to fit it is...
Okay. Jen, I think I lost your audio.
Sorry. Am I back? Okay. So this is Ranger Perfect Pearl. It's a pigment powder. Mike will put it in the chat. It's a very inexpensive, wonderful product that can be used in so many ways. So many ways. I have a lot of videos on my channel using it. All right. So you can set your project aside to dry, and I will, and then we can get out the stuff for my technique. We're going to do some stamping with water. You could use the same inks that you used last time if you want to. Keep it easy. And remember, you can go back and watch this again. Somebody would ask what mica powder is. It really depends. There's a lot of different mica powders out there on whether or not it would work for this. You want a really fine powder. And that's what the Perfect Pearl is. And this has a built-in resin that when it's mixed with water, it doesn't really rub off. So this, I don't have to put a fixative on. So. All right. All right, next, let's move on to technique number 2. You'll want to gather your supplies that we talked about in our homework. You're going to want some kind of stamp that has not a lot of solid areas to it, but really you can try this with anything. I just find an image like this one that has lots of different things going on is more forgiving for the technique. And then you need water. And pro tip, if you want to, you could use a pearlized water for this instead. You definitely could. And then you need any kind of ink that reacts with water. Distress inks work great. And then we need an ornament. Well, actually, I'm going to do it on cardstock and I'll die cut it later. And then just any kind of white cardstock. You could use watercolor paper here, but it won't work as well. As for what color Perfect Pearls did I use? It's the original. It's the Perfect Pearl color of Perfect Pearls. That's what I linked. And Mike linked it in the comments. A fixative is a spray that you put on top of any of your projects to protect them, but I didn't use it here. So, all right. Yeah, some powders don't have the fixative. In that case, you'd need a fixative. But if you use this Ranger Perfect Pearl, it's inexpensive and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Okay, so I will be using my MISTI stamping tool for this technique, and you can just watch me as I do this technique, and then again, I'll do it a second time, and Kathy will join in that time. Now, this is another of those techniques. Oh, I broke my MISTI yesterday. Oh, isn't that sad? Oh, I dropped him. He's sad. So it'll make a strange noise when I turn it, but whatever. Okay, so I have in my MISTI stamping tool, you can see there's a clear mat in here. This is the Waffle Flower grip mat. So it's a little sticky. So if you're wondering what is in here, if you have a MISTI, you just need the regular mouse pad in there. But what I have here is a piece of regular white cardstock. So any white cardstock would work here. I do recommend heavyweight cardstock whenever you can, because it's always better for techniques, especially inky ones. So it's regular white cardstock, and I'm lining up this image. This image is from a great Gina K stamp set, one of my favorites. It's an older one, but again, you could use a background stamp, whatever you want. All right, so I'm going to place this into my stamping tool, grab that stamp. Oh wait, why am I doing this first? Ignore me. At least this is ready. Kathy, I'm losing my mind. We need to ink our paper first.
That's right. Paper inking.
Here we go. Okay, so I am going to ink up my cardstock here, and we're going to do stamping with water. And the best way to make this technique work is to be super generous with the ink that you put down. So I have 2 colors of Distress ink from Tim Holtz. I have Rustic Wilderness and Uncharted Mariner. I had mentioned in the homework, darker colors are best because you'll see the technique more, but you could definitely do this with whatever you want. And I am going direct to paper with this. I'm putting down my first color, my darker color. You can only use one color if you prefer. But notice I'm going direct to paper. I'm not using a blending tool here because I want as much ink as possible onto this. I want to turn that white cardstock completely dark green. You don't want any of that white showing through. So I'm pushing this down as firmly as I can. Now, if you want to, you can, what?
I like that you're holding your paper with your ink lid. That's brilliant.
Sometimes I remember to, and sometimes I don't. Now, if you want a second color, it will take a few more seconds to do, but if you want a second color, you can definitely apply it by taking a darker color that would blend nicely over that. In this case, I'm using the blue, and I'm putting as heavy amount as I can down here with an inking tool. Now, I had already put a lot of dark green down, so the paper is already very saturated with ink. This is just going to give us a little blended look. You could go like direct like this to get a lot of ink down, get a lot, and then blend it out so it kind of blends with your green. So see how I have a little variation there? Totally don't have to do that. Completely up to you. But I do recommend when you do this, again, regular white cardstock and put as much of that ink down as you can. If you don't have distress inks, you could definitely use Gina K inks. You could use the Simon inks that Kathy was using earlier. Any kind of ink that reacts with water. All right, now we can put it into our MISTI stamping tool. All right. Somebody asked if I was using a domed blender there. Yes, I did it because I find it's faster to put ink down with this than a blending brush, but you could definitely use a blending brush for that. All right, so now here is the technique. Now, this stamp here has had a lot of love. So I could do the water stamping just directly on here. If your stamp is a little bit newer and unloved, if it's an unloved stamp, you could first ink up your stamp with Versamark, and that'll make your stamp a little sticky so that when you spray water on it, it doesn't bubble up. It doesn't like, what do you call it? Like look like little raindrops. It kind of covers it a bit better. All right, so here is what we do. I have my water here, and I'm gonna spray this from about a foot above. You don't wanna be too close because you don't want droplets. You want it to be like a mist. So I'm gonna mist this maybe 8 times. So it has a light mist on it. I don't know if you can see, but there's no like big droplets. It's just a mist. And then I will stamp that on here. So I inked up my stamp with water instead of ink. Yes, distress oxides will work, but keep in mind distress oxide inks have like a milky look to it. So it's just going to look a little different. All inks will look a little different. All right. So now look at that.
Ooh, that's so pretty.
With just one stamp with water, because what's happening is I misted water on my stamp and stamped that onto this cardstock that has the reactive ink. So it reacts, and look how beautiful that is. It's just gorgeous. Now, if you want it to be more intense, you can give a cup. Actually, I'm going to wipe it clean because my stamp probably picked up a little ink and might as well not put that back down. So I'm just going to give it a little mist. 1, 2, 3. Just a little bit more and stamp. Now, if you do this and it looks too splotchy, next time use less water. Now see, that makes it look a little more splotchy because I put more water. So if you want a splotchier look, use more water or repeat it. If you want a cleaner look, then use less water. It's always good to err and go with less water, and then you can add if you want. Now you can see as it dries, look at how it's intensifying. It's like magic. Isn't that pretty?
That's cool.
So now we have this beautiful, and it blends, the image is basically a lighter version of the color behind it. So lighter green into a darker blue. So that is our technique. It's beautiful. And Concord and 9 Inks, you might need to do a little bit more. I Concord and Ninth inks react with water, not as much. So if you've got distress inks, you can try that. Every ink will be different. And let me show you, for example, this is Altenew ink. So it reacts a little bit differently. Again, the darker color is more intense than the lighter. This one is Gina K. So it reacts a little different. You know, every time you do it, you're going to get a little bit different result. So there we have it.
Oh,
All
gorgeous.
right. Okay. And there are variations of this technique, and I mentioned some in the instructions, but for now, let's create together, Kathy.
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Use a different stamp. I think I'm going to demo this with a different stamp so you can see a variation.
And I'm going to use the same colors, Jen, that I used on my last project, but I'm going to use a pad, and I feel really weird doing this, but here we go.
Oh yeah.
Look at that.
I have not tried it with Catherine Pooler. I had mentioned in the homework video, the way to test if your cardstock or your ink is reactive with water is to spread some ink onto your cardstock and then flick water on it and heat set it. If it changes significantly, then you know it's reactive with water. But I'll tell you, by far the best inks, because they were designed to do this, are distress inks. Good old-fashioned distress inks, great for all different types of techniques. Now, if you did this, I'm sorry?
I'm just going to use the Simon ink and see how it looks.
Sure. Now, again, I don't recommend watercolor paper for this. The reason I don't recommend watercolor paper is it absorbs that water too much and it doesn't give as intense results. It'll work, but it won't be as intense. So if you have different cardstocks, you can definitely experiment with the different cardstock you use. Now, this stamp I haven't done as much with. Cling stamps, I'll tell you, rubber stamps like this will always work best with stamping. It's just the nature of it. So what you could do is use cling with this, just spray right on it. If you feel like your water is pilling up a little too much, you can first put down a little bit of Versamark ink. But honestly, I rarely do that. So I recommend, again, holding your mist bottle up high so you don't get big droplets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that will be, I didn't ink my paper again. Kathy, what's wrong with me? My brother's shaking his head.
I handled it for you. Now, I know that pink might not seem like the most holiday color, but I love doing pink for Christmas. So, all right, you said 6 to 8. And again, I've just got the same.
Yes, you can do this technique. Actually, you know what? I'll demonstrate with the Perfect Pearl water because that works really well. All right, let's see what you got. Now, if yours isn't very intense at first, remember you can repeat it. It's always best to go with less water the first time and then repeat it.
Okay, you can't see it as much as I can, but that is gorgeous.
And as it dries, it will intensify. So if you want to repeat that, you can. You may want to but I would go very light with water.
Okay, very light, because it really is already starting to react, and that looks amazing.
Yes. And as it dries, it'll get better. And if you heat set it, it'll look great right away. All right. Yeah. So I have inked my paper here. I finally remembered. I've inked it with a ton of seedless preserves, just solid dark purple. Now, this time I thought, because somebody asked, yes, you can use this. And it'll make it more intense because the pearl will be added. So I'm going to mist from above. Did it about 8 times. And let's put this on here. I do like to kind of hold it there just to get that water on there. Now, in the instructions, you can check it out later. I did variations of this technique. And one variation is you can ink up your stamp with a different color, mist it and stamp on top, and it'll leave a little bit of that color behind. But this is just, look at that right away. I don't even think I need to do more with that. Look how stunning that is.
Beautiful, Jen.
This will absolutely work with any technique or any stamp. Just know that, you know, some stamps might give better results than others, but that's why we're trying. Yes, Jess, you can definitely use a shimmer spray like Hero Arts Iridescent for this. I do recommend something that's clear, iridescent shimmer, not like a silver or something. It'll work, but it won't be as impressive. All right, so there we go.
That is so cool. Look at that.
Isn't that fun? So it does look like, how do you say that? B-A-T-I-K, fabric. How do you say that? Batik? I don't know how to say that. I'm an engineering major. What do I know? But anyways, it does look kind of velvety. Where the white, especially with the Distress ink, where the water stamps, it almost looks velvety. So you can have a very simple card, just put a simple greeting on it, and you would be good to go. Isn't that fun?
I love it. I've never, and here's what's kind of fun.
Batik.
Those of you,
okay, thank you.
You know, I've never done this technique in my life.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's what, yeah.
Again, the darker the ink, the better you'll see it. So like if you can see Kathy's there on like a medium color pink, if she wants it more intense, she could use a darker pink. All right. Have you tried this technique of pre-cut? Yeah. I have not tried this technique on wood. I have not.
Oh.
Somebody asked about Concord and 9th inks. I'm going to do it right now and show you how intense it could be.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that too, because I have a lot. And just a reminder too, this was the Simon ink, which the positively saturated inks are water reactive. I mean, that's I just think that's a really nice water reactivity.
Now I'm noticing here with the Concord, it's you don't see it much, but if you're watching, I wish I could make it fast. It will intensify. If you've got a paper towel, you can dab it on top too.
Okay.
But here, see how it's starting to come out?
Yeah.
So sometimes you gotta just wait and let it dry on its own or heat set it, and it'll start to pop out. All right. Okay, Jane said Catherine Pooler inks work great for this. I do know Gina K inks work great for this, and so do Hero Arts. So, but again, if you've got Distress ink, that's the way to go. If you have Distress Oxide ink, it will look a little bit different, but really all inks will look different. All cardstocks will probably look a little different too. And yes, it does look like velvet in real life. It really does. It's fun.
That's amazing.
So there you have it.
Amazing.
Andy said, I'm using Broken China Distress ink, and it looks like a sun print project. Hey, Kathy, can you hold that up close to the camera? I want to see it closer. Oh. Look at that. Isn't that fun? It's so much more fun to make than just putting like a plain piece of pink cardstock background on your card, you know? Use that instead of
the other thing too, Jen, if you wanted to create something that transitioned and blended, you would just go really heavy-handed with your blend and just add as much ink as you can get on there, because this is just one color.
Yep.
But
if you are if yours isn't intensifying, one thing the few things you can do, use a darker color, make sure you use more ink. Really put as much ink on that cardstock first as you can, and then try different inks. So you can see here, Concord and 9th worked, but it's still drying, but the Distress ink worked much better. But I know that really a lot of the dye inks will work for this. And try different things. Try using more water, try using less water, and you can get a lot of different looks with it. So there you go.
Fun, fun, fun. I love it.
I hope you're inky.
Okay. I feel inky, and I'm slightly nervous about it. So that's okay, because that's what hand washing is for. And I may not have a kitchen, or I may not have a bathroom sink, but I do have a kitchen sink. Okay. That was awesome, Jen. I loved it.
Real quick, Sylvia said she used a shimmer sparkle spray, and it looks like green velvet with sparkle. Perfect for Christmas, right? Christina does not have inky hands.
Well, you know what? That's how we're going to do it. All right. We are going to move into the next technique, which is colorful paper strips. Now, I am going to cut my strips right now, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut some strips. And that's it. So you will need at least 7 strips of each of your chosen colors. Now, I will tell you, mixing a metallic, this is a matte gold cardstock, it just makes it look very luxe, and I love that look. So if you haven't cut your strips, I invite you to join me now as we cut our strips. And here's the beautiful thing with something like this. It is a great way to use up scraps. I have, and I haven't even cut this yet, I've got a piece of cardstock here. This is Neenah 80 pound, but you can use the lightest weight paper that you have. You don't need fancy paper, right? You just need something that you can glue your strips onto, and it can be this size. Now, part of the reason why I wanted you to have 7¼ inch wide is so you could completely cover your panel, because what I'm going to show you at our wrap up today is some fun things that I made with my panels beyond just a tree. So, all right, I got to stand up to cut because we can't be sitting for this. So these panels here are 7¼ and all I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to start right here. I want to cut that off because that's not quite what I need. And I'm just going to work my way down and do 1/4 inch strips. All right. And we're going to cut. There's nothing more exciting than watching other people cut paper. Who's with me? Who's with me out there? Yes. Okay. This is a great way to use up pattern paper. You know those pads that we buy and we say, oh, I want to use that. And then we never do. Mixing in some of that paper, some of your pattern paper. And again, I know most pattern paper pads are like, you know, they're 6 inches by 6 inches, and that's okay too, because you don't have to fill a whole panel of cardstock if you're doing shapes, right? All right.
I noticed somebody left a comment saying you can use some of your inky paper from one of the previous techniques, like the edge that you would cut off. You could use that for strips too. That's what I did here. So these are my strips, are some of my inky leftovers, like from the side.
We totally can. Yep. But if you've already done your stripping, that sounds wrong. If you've done your stripping, please admire my fine form and technique. And I will say, I know we all have our paper trimmers that we love. This one changed my life because some of you may not know this, but Jennifer and I know each other from scrapbooking, and I had never used a trimmer like this before card making. I always used slide trimmers. This has changed my life. I want to be buried with this.
Any of the Tim ones are good. There's this one, that's great too. It's the smaller version. And then his rotary trimmer, fantastic. They're all good ones.
All right, here we go. All right, I think that's enough to start with.
Ruth asked if this class is appropriate for younger crafters. Yes, there will be no bad words here. No bad words.
There will be no language. Now, what I like to do when I'm gluing on is I like to have a piece of scrap paper. This is literally 20-pound copy paper, and I buy it in bulk so that I can do messy techniques. And we're just going to glue our strips on. That's it. So anything you have right now to work with is great. And yes, welcome to younger crafters. We love you. We love getting them early because we're going to have lifelong crafters. So now just spread out your strips, right? So they're easy to access. And the other thing too is you can do any width of strip you like. And yes, Sabine, pattern paper is great for this because you know how so often you get a collection of pattern paper and it's coordinated color-wise, right? Because there are brilliant designers out there who do those sorts of things. And then all you'd have to do maybe is mix in one like color of cardstock in with your pattern paper, and you'd be great. You'd be good to go. So,
hey, Kathy, real quick.
Yeah,
real quick, because somebody asked, I want to make sure that when you were cutting the 1/4 inch strips on the Tim Holtz trimmer, there are square grid lines in the background. Those grid lines are 1/4 inch apart. So you just move the edge of your cardstock over one grid line each time and cut. So that's what she was doing.
Yeah. And I'm a ruler girl. I never look at those grid lines, but I love that they're there. But I never use them. That's a good reminder, Jennifer. I should do that. Now for this, you can use liquid glue. You can use whatever sort of sticky thing you have. And we're going to just put tape on our panel. Now I see a question from Enid, and she's asking about the rotary trimmer. How do you keep the edges from being frayed? Well, it depends on the trimmer, because I know with the Tim Holtz rotary trimmer, you have to push in order to get a clean cut. You have to engage the blade. And so it really depends on your trimmer. Your blade could be in need of replacement. All right, so we're just gluing now, and I like this tape runner so much. I have a backup here because I know I'm going to run out. But you don't need to make it solid, because you're going to get enough coverage here. And what I like to do is just start in the center, right at the edge here, and go down with one piece. Okay, we're going to start there. Actually, I have to put my glasses on. And then all we do is we just build out, right? And we build out in order, color order. So here you butt up against and push, line it up, strip. Here's another true story for you. When I first started making cards, Jennifer I didn't know that Jennifer did so much on the YouTube. And Jennifer, I watched one of your strip videos with cardstock strips, and I was like, what? You can do what? Now, I do want to tell you, this is what I like to do, but in order to conserve cardstock, especially if you don't have a ton of metallic, you can start on one side more towards, have some hanging off, if that makes sense, because as you go further out, you can use that piece of cardstock when you cut it away on some of the smaller areas. So all you're doing is repeating your stripes. It's the easiest, peasiest thing. Yes, Carrie, you can use copy paper. That will work just fine, because you're going to be putting a whole layer on top of cardstock. So copy paper works great. Another thing I've done in the past with this technique is I've taken, what are those called? Sticky label sheets. I've cut a panel of sticky label sheet in this size, 4 1/4 by 5, and I've taken the backers off and put my cardstock strips onto the sticky label paper. And I think I learned that from Jennifer McGuire, so I could be wrong. Most of what I know comes from Jen. But again, this is just a great way to create these little beautiful colored backgrounds. Oh, is there a trick to getting them together? You know what I do, Monica? Let me zoom in here a little, because it can be hard, like sometimes, to get it lined up. I like to press my finger down on the last strip and then push it in as close as I can get it, so I can almost feel it touching that, and then just slide it down. Now, that is one reason why using liquid adhesive for this could be nice, but sometimes liquid adhesive if you're using copy paper, it can be a little, I'm going to stop there and work on the other side. It can get your paper a little moist, if that makes, I hate that word, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I just kind of take my time and try to say, we're going to butt it up. Now here I am going in the other direction. All right, stripping it up. And you'll see, even if you just had 7 strips of each, if you line it up at the top, you'll have enough in the cutoff here. And I'll show you that in just a second.
But hey, Kathy, while you're gluing, Erica and Christina both said that they used an Altenew adhesive sheet, which is fantastic. You can put a big piece of that onto a thin piece of like printer paper, and then use that. It's use what you have. Really, it's about using what you have.
You know what? That's really great, Jen. I have that Altenew paper, and it's funny. I don't know how many of you are like us in that you get so many things in your supplies that you forget you have them. And I could have used that. All right.
Well, today, that was one of our goals of today, is to remind us of what we have.
Well, and that's just it. Now I will remember too. I mean, again, having never done the technique of stamping with water, I feel like my life has been changed here for the better.
Oh.
All right, I am going to stick you here, and now with whatever I have left over, I'm going to cut these off. I mean, this is one of those techniques that, you know, it's so basic, right? But we're going to flip you over, okay, and see that little, I'm actually going to press this down a little. I'm just using the side of my hand. You can also use a bone folder, kind of burnish that a little bit. And even if you're not butted up perfectly, it's going to be just fine. Then just take your scissors and snip.
Aren't those scissors wonderful?
Yes, this is an example of a supply that I had. And Jen told me, don't you love those? I'm like, I hardly remember that I have them. I started using them and they're amazing. They're from Spellbinders.
They're Spellbinders shears. They're great.
Yeah, they cut like amazingly well.
Yes.
And they don't stick. Not that there's anything too sticky here. And of course, this doesn't have to be a perfect cut because you can trim, you know, you're going to cut shapes from your panel. But what I do want everyone to do just for fun, because you can take some of your leftovers and just fill out your panel so that you have a basically mostly full panel. So over
that would be great as a card background. Just put like a white die cut tree on top and you're good.
Right?
You could keep it full.
You could take this. And the other thing you could do, in fact, if you're going to do something like that, you could take this piece, use a panel die like, you know, Gina K has them, or Waffle Flower. And when you cut it, when you cut a smaller panel out, it really seals the paper into, oh, I think my tape runner just went out, didn't it? Yes, it did. I'm going to throw in a little liquid glue. And, oh, I see Megan out there. Yeah, Megan, they're great scissors, aren't they? Oh, love them. And fill in the side. So that's the technique. All right, we're wiping that glue away and we're going to cut off the excess. All right, cut and cut. And then once you have that, you have a panel that is good to go. All right. So Jennifer, I'm excited to see what you're doing with yours, because I've already cut out the next set of strips, which is the same. Now here, down here, I'm not going to worry about that piece right there, but isn't that pretty? And I love mixing in metallics. So panel 1 done. Jen, let's get to it. Panel 2.
Real quick, somebody asked about the scissors. These are just very smooth scissors, super smooth. I like the Tim Holtz ones too. Those have a little bit of an edge to them. I just think these are great. But listen, if you've got scissors you're happy with, by all means, stick with those. But I did put a link in the comments if you wanted to just see them. They cut like butter. They surprised me. I didn't think I needed them until I used them. And then it's like, oh boy, these are great.
Yeah, they're very nice.
As we get started, I wanted to show, as Kathy switches her adhesive out, I wanted to show you a little comparison. I really like using a die to cut my strips sometimes because it gives a little bit of a different look. Now, please keep in mind, I enjoy the details of crafting. Not everybody does. So this is a detail that you may think is ridiculous, or you may be like, ooh, I noticed that too. But this is from a Gina K Master Layout set, and it cuts 1/4 inch, and it cuts actually a thin line between it that you can use too. But these are 1/4 inch strips. And for this one, I cut 1/4 inch strips with that die. And you see how there's like you can see the definition between them better. Now this one like on the left is, I just cut the same cardstock, but I cut it with my trimmer. So it doesn't have that little ledge between each. Do you see that difference? Does that make any sense? So this was done with the trimmer on the left. On the right was with the die, and the die creates that little ledge, kind of rounds the edges off. And look how different that looks. I just love the look of the definition between those. So it's totally up to you.
It looks so much more, it's very finished, where this is very flat and very smooth, right? Yes. That gives you that little ledge. It's very cool.
And it's up to you. So like if I wanted to stamp on this, I would definitely use my trimmer to keep it flat. If I just wanted a few decorative to stand out more in the background, the bevel edge of this, that's the word I'm looking for. The bevel edge made with the die is good for that. We're pulling up which master layouts that is from Gina. Mike is looking right now.
Okay.
So,
and
here's another.
Oh, let me see.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, Jen.
So what I use is I bought graph paper. It's super thin, but there's lines in case I want to make sure the spacing's right. And it's very, very thin. So I use that a lot in my crafting. It's actually left over from my engineering days. It's old, but and I don't want to cover mine all with strips because I'm lazy. So I'm just going to cover up above and below with white cardstock, and then I can die cut from that.
I love that. I love it. You know, and the other thing is too, like you said, Jen, if you are planning to stamp, now, of course, I wouldn't stamp on something where I used metallic paper or matte gold paper because it might not turn out as well. But this is such a fun thing to do for stamping. Like, make a striped background with all of your fun, strips that you have, and then stamp on it and emboss. It's such a cool look for a background just in general. And that would be where, like Jennifer said, the strips would be nice because then it's nice and flat for stamping. But yeah, strip dies are great because then you don't have to cut a thing and you just run them through and you're good to go.
And Mike found out it's Master Layouts 8. Gina has these master layouts that have great basic layering dies. He says it's 8. Is it 8? He's looking again. It's got those strip dies in it. But but there are a lot of those kind of dies out there. I just like hers in particular because it also cuts these thin strips too.
Yeah.
In between.
Yep. Another die set that I have that you could do this with as well, if you like that, but you don't have that, is the Simon Says Stamp sentiment strip dies that I use all the time for cutting out greetings. There's many sizes in there, and I'll show you. It looks like this. Oh, where are you? Here you are. Oh, sentiment labels. And you can use something like this to cut out strips too. And this works great. That's one of my most used die sets in my studio. I just love it. Oh, Jen, you're going to cut your shape. Look at you. That's
so
impressive.
I'm going to cut this now. This will flatten some of that ledge that we have. So I could have glued those on after, but I didn't think of it. So I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah, you don't have to cover the whole panel, but the only reason I'm going to do that is because I wanted to make something that I'm sharing with you later, which is a shaker card out of my negative space on this project. So, and I think too, sometimes when you get into the zone with strips, it's kind of meditative. It's kind of easy peasy. Oh, and yeah, washi tape. Monica, I don't know if you were the one that posted in the chat or in the Facebook group, but yeah, you can use washi tape for something like this. And I don't know about you, but I have oodles of washi tape that never sees the light of day unless I'm using it on the back to seal an envelope. So washi tape would be great for that. And I think I'll cut 2 as my shape just to show you how fun it is. And the other thing too, so if you are, let's see here, if you're planning to use your leftover panel for something, it does make sense to be strategic if you're cutting a shape, right? Because you don't want to cut and then realize, oh wait, I cut my shape out of the crop that I actually wanted. And I'll show you what I mean in a second here. But I'm just going to fill this out. I cut way more strips. Okay, so there's that friend. Burnish. Where's the burnish? I like to use my Teflon bone folder for this because, it just keeps it nice and smooth. But come here now. All right.
So I saw people mentioning you can emboss these with an embossing folder. And I had my embossing folder out to demonstrate this so you can see it. You can put this into an embossing folder and you'll have the texture across all of it. The ornament die set that I'm using today is from Hero Arts and it's in the supply list. It's a great one. They have a lot of the great dies. So I'm just going to give this a little mist off screen with some water. It just will help with the impression. I'm going to put this into a Gina K embossing folder. Let's see, I want to make it this way. And then I'm going to run it through my machine. And that'll just add some interest to it.
All right. I think we should all take pictures of our spaces at the end of the day because I have a feeling we're all going to have massive crafter math. Ooh, oh my goodness, that is amazing.
So you could stamp on it. You could do all kinds of things.
That looks fantastic. And I love, Jen, that you just have like a few strips because, you know, I'm covering the whole piece, right? But you don't have to do that. But I wanted to show you this real quick to wrap this up. Let me zoom out a little here. Is that if you think, hey, I'm probably going to use this panel for something else, what I did is I took a panel from my waffle flower layers, right? And I placed it down so that I got a little here and a little there, right? You can figure out the perfect crop. Then take your shape. Oh, not that one. That little guy. He's like, include me. No, sorry, not today. And then you can cut this all out at the same time. Frame that to the best of your ability. Let's see. That looks
Oh, that's going to be so cool.
Right? And then you run it through.
And you'll have pieces for multiple cards.
Yeah.
3 cards, actually.
So I'm going to cut that really quick. I didn't use a shim, so I hope it goes through. But I think it will. Let's see. Oh, baby. And then not only that, you have stripes that you can use on a card. You have your shape. And hello, I have a panel for a shaker.
Look at that. And the gold. You used gold. This is a great opportunity to use your specialty cardstock in just little amounts. So if you have just that little bit hanging off, like leftover on a cut, a project you did, you can just cut that little sliver off the side and use it for this technique. Excuse me as I try to get my foam tape off of my desk because I accidentally.
But yeah, I mean, and again, there's a card, there's something for another card or a tag. And again, and there's little strips that would look so cute, just like a little belly band on something, right? I mean, I love strips. And I think we forget about them, Jen, because they're such a simple, simple technique, So that, friends, is that technique. Yay!
And let me show you this one that I did off screen. See all these strips here? Those were leftover edges from the stamping with watercolor. And then I popped up the one in the center that's just a little scrap of glitter cardstock that I had. I popped it up so it stand out more. So it's all the same technique, just looking at variations. Keep all your little leftovers. You can cut little thin strips from it and really have a lot of fun with this technique.
Oh, I love that. I love it so much. Okay. It's so fun doing these again because now I have more pieces to create with, and that is so fun.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yay.
How are we all doing?
Yeah. How are we doing okay? How's the pace? I know I think it feels to Jen and I that it's a little fast, but remember, we're trying to stick to a 20-minute segment for each technique.
Because this is really about, you can sit back and watch. You can sit back or you can just kind of do some of the things, but this is about reminding ourselves of these techniques, of what you can do with them all, with your supplies, whatever you have on hand. Now we're going to, we have how many more techniques?
I think we each have, you have 2 more and I have 1 more.
So we have 3 more. So we're halfway through this first part here. And we're going to do embossing folder. Now, as you're getting out your supplies for this technique, as you're kind of putting away what you just finished, keep in mind that this is one of those techniques that takes practice. And it's going to be different for everybody because it depends on what cardstock you're using. It depends on the machine you're using. It depends on the folder you're using, the ink you're using. There's a lot of variables here. So if you try it and aren't happy with the results, you're going to want to go back and try it again, because I promise you will get there. And this can be one of the best ways to really step up your embossing folders. I'm going to demonstrate one way. You can watch me. And then as Kathy and I do it together, I will talk about some variations of that technique. So remember, you can always go back and watch this and catch some of those additional ideas. And some of the other ideas that we throw out during class are in the tips section on the instructions. So you can also find them there. So let's turn overhead. You're going to need your embossing folder of choice. I had recommended a folder with kind of like a repeating pattern if possible, and without much background. See, this is the background here. See that background? This has a decent amount of background, but you don't want something that has big background spaces, at least until you get comfortable with the technique. Real quick, somebody asked what those scissors were. They are the Spellbinders 9-inch shears. All right. So now as far as the embossing folder you use for this, whether 3D or 2D, it's up to you. For example, all 3D embossing folders sadly seem to be a little different thickness. But if you notice, this is a 2D right here, and this is a 3D. It's a little bit thicker. The 3D is going to give you more variation in the heights and get kind of that beveled look, whereas the 2D is just going to have raised and lowered areas. Both will work here, okay? I'm going to demonstrate with this Spellbinders. This is considered a 3D embossing folder. As for the sandwich, it 100% depends on your machine, and that's why I asked in homework that you check out what your machine says to do. A sandwich and kind of test out what sandwich you needed for your particular embossing folder, because everybody has a different one. I'm going to demonstrate this time with the Spellbinders Platinum. I'm trying to use different machines just to show you they work for everything. Okay, so now just watch me as I show some tips, because I've done this in videos before, but I'm actually going to change up something that I found when coming up with this project works even better, and I don't think I've ever shown it. All right. Oh, let me move this. Sorry. Okay, so I have my embossing folder here. When you open your embossing folder, one side you'll notice the background is raised. So when you run your finger across it, you're touching the background. The other side will have the background set back like a valley, and the pattern or the flowers or whatever will be raised. So there's two sides. You can use either side for this technique. You'll get two different looks, okay? I am opting to put my ink on the side where the background is raised. So when I'm touching this here, that background where it's kind of solid, that's what I'm touching it. The background is raised, but do whatever side you want. I promise it'll work. So this is the side where the background is raised, and that's where I'm going to put my ink, okay? Now on the other side, this is where the details are all raised. I am going to place my die cut. You could use a panel if you want to here. I've got my die cut ready, and I'm going to put a little bit of temporary tape runner on the back. This I found is really helpful in getting great results. I put a little bit of tape runner on there, and I'm going to tape it into something temporary. You don't want to use like double-sided tape here. And I'm going to tape it in there. Now that way it'll stay on this side of the folder. So again, this is the side of the folder where the pattern is raised, and I've temporarily adhered. You could use little pieces of washi tape if you want. Temporarily adhered my die cut there. Now on this side, real quick, Kelly, yes, this will work with a 2D embossing folder for sure. And I will show some examples of that. Now on this side here, this is where the background is raised. That's the side I chose. I am going to apply a pigment ink. Now pigment ink is a ink that kind of sits on top of things, on top of your paper, and it just works really well for this technique. You can definitely use dye ink. I'll talk about that later, but a white pigment ink or metallic pigment ink would be great here. Now what I'm doing is I am going to tap this over the inside of the folder. Don't press too firmly because you don't want to get into the valleys. See how it's only on the raised areas. If you are concerned, you could use a brayer to roll the ink on, which I might demonstrate in a bit. But I am applying my ink right onto the raised area. I'm not going back and forth because that'll cause some of the ink to go in the creases, in the valleys. I want it to stay on the mountains. So I'm just dabbing. So look how bright white that is. Any white pigment ink would work. Hero Arts Unicorn, Simon's Stamp, Gina K, they're all great white pigment inks. Metallic inks would work too. Okay. All right. So now I have my ornament taped in here temporarily. I'm going to close this. Okay. And now run it through as you would that folder for any situation, whatever you figured out before class. All right. All right, now watch this. Now see how it's left that white ink behind. Okay. If you have some areas where it didn't quite fill in, you may need to add a shim. The best shim you can add into your sandwich is a piece of cardstock. Okay. That would just go underneath your folder. I'm going to repeat that again, just to make it more intense. So I'm going to ink that again. And because I temporarily taped my ornament in there, it's in the same spot. I don't have to worry about it. So now I can close that again. I inked it again in the same way. Close it again and put through the die cut machine. Look at that shoulder working, Kathy. My shoulders
I'm so
coming
impressed.
back. I'm so happy. All right. So there, it's a little more intense. So the original color cardstock, let's look at compare the two sides. I think I'm done with this one. You just carefully take it out. It will be on there good. Just be real careful. There we go. So look at, this is with the Technique. This is what it looks like without the white ink. So it really steps it up. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to mention, I'm going to show this briefly, is you can also, if you want to make it more intense, this is you can try this later kind of thing. If you want to make it even more intense, I'm running out of room. If you guys could see this space. Okay. If you want to make this more intense, you can roll a darker ink on top. So I have a darker color ink here and a Tim Holtz sprayer, which is the greatest tool of all time. And what I'm going to do is roll this on top. And so the ink will end up on the raised pattern and make it even darker. It'll be subtle, but you could do a different color if you wanted to. But look at how it makes it stand out even more. So now you got this really intense result.
Gorgeous.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
All right. So now let's play along, Kathy. And I'm going to show some more variations too.
And I'm going to do it exactly how Jennifer did it because I've never done this before.
There you go. See?
Yeah. And I am using the same. Did you just use the snowflakes from Gina K recently, or you had that one, but you didn't use it? Okay.
The snowflakes one, that's what I did for the stripped paper embossing.
Oh, that's right. Yes. I have that one here too, because I absolutely love it. So, all right.
Somebody asked if you have a Spellbinders. So if you have the Spellbinders embossing folder, I put the ink on the side where it says Spellbinders. So the ink is right here. But I'm going to demonstrate the opposite way so you can get an idea of what it looks like to do it the opposite. Yeah. Okay. So
mine is very small, so this might be fun to see. My die cut, the surface area is not huge. So
what folder do you have again?
This is the Gina K Design Snowflakes, and I'm going to use the Simon's Stamp white pigment ink.
Perfect.
And I did Yep.
This is the folder that she's using. Yep. It has a good amount of background, so she might have to repeat it a couple times and maybe put in a shim, but it's definitely worth trying. Let's do another.
And I'm not going to smudge Jen. I'm going to just do what you did. Press it.
Yep. And I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to ink up the other side. Okay, just so that you can see the difference. So this time I'm going to put a little bit of tape on the back of that. And this time I'm taping my ornament onto the side where the background is raised. So it's opposite of what I did before to show you either way works. So this time the white ink is going on the side where the pattern's raised. And I want to be really careful here just to dab lightly because I don't want it to get into the background area. So you can see how the white pigment ink works really well here.
And I'm going to try this on my Intracut and see, because I have it.
Right.
Oh, I need the plates. Yeah, that'd be helpful. All right. Let's see. I'm going to run it through. I think I have it too tight. All right.
All right. For that one, you'd switch it to the 2D emboss, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And do you put both blades, Jen? That's what, like, yeah, right?
Yes. Put it between the plates. Between the plates.
Put it between the plates. All right, here we go.
So this one right here, I did the opposite. I put the ink on the raised area and glued my ornament to the flat area. And see how it's different. You get two different results. It's more subtle, but the white ink is in the valleys. So this doesn't have the white ink in the valleys. This one does. So you can use either side of the folder. Should you put the folder?
Oh.
Look at that.
Okay.
See? And if you have little splotches of white ink, you could always just kind of dab that off with a dry cloth if it bothers you.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. Let me grab this. Because it pushed it right to the background. I love that.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Somebody said, should you put the folded end of the folder into the die cut machine first? That's what I always do. And I've never had one break. Actually, I did have one break years ago because I had the wrong sandwich and I was trying to muscle it through. So, you know,
I do that too, actually. Yeah. But I think I'm going to brayer over this, and I'm not sure which color I want to do. I mean, it's very small.
Somebody asked which temporary adhesives we recommend. I know that we both like the Simon Says Stamp one, the Altenew one, and there's my Gina K. Where'd it go? Here it is. These are all great options.
And then
all great options.
This Easy Dots one, which is literally listed as repositionable, and I know for me it has worked really well. But see, this is really cute. And now I don't know what I want to, I don't know, Jen, what color I want to go over this with. Because look, I mean, I'll zoom in here a little. I think that's really pretty.
You can leave it as is. Now, rolling over with a darker color will be most effective if you're using a 3D embossing folder, because 3D embossing folders give you raised areas, lowered areas, and a little bit in between.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it will just depend. All right, I'm going to demonstrate one more thing here. I'm doing the same exact thing, but this time instead of white pigment ink, I'm going to use a colored dye ink. And here's a little thing that I found gives slightly better results. Let me try it with, trying to pick ink here. This is fun to just grab what I can find. I think I'll use this. No, that won't be dark enough. Hang on, I'm going to, when in doubt, go for Tranquil Teal.
I think I'll just do this. I'll see what it looks like to do a pink, like the pink I was using before, the sweets.
Sure. So if you want to do this technique with a dye ink, like a colored ink, traditional dye ink, one thing that I find sometimes is helpful is to first pat down a little bit of Versamark ink. Again, that just kind of preps the surface and allows the ink to stick a little better. You don't always have to do it. It really depends on how loved your folder is, whether it needs it. Now I have to find my brayer. It's somewhere on my, oh, here it is. And my ink stand. Here we go. You can't use a brayer without an ink stand. Now you could here, I've put down some Versamark already. I can dab like this or go kind of smooth like this. See how I'm going just smooth in circles? That's really the best way. Or another option is to pick up some color with a brayer and roll that color on. So it really just depends. But by putting a little Versamark ink down first, it'll allow the ink to stay on the inside of the embossing folder better. Oh, Kathy, that looks gorgeous.
Isn't it cute? I mean, just even though this is a 2D, just by putting, and I got a little brayer on here because this puffed up a bit, but just adding that little extra adds so much.
Yes.
Detail. You know what I mean? And
I love it.
Cut out multiples of these and make a little forest. I think that's so cute.
And you could always do like a light roll of pigment ink on top. Now this, I didn't choose dark enough ink color, but let's see. All right, so that didn't I did too much of a tone on tone, so I'm going to repeat it, but this time try darker blue. And you can see it's not really pilling up, so it should be okay. So this is one of those where you can sit down and try this technique and different variations on just some backgrounds, and you'll end up with learning a lot, and you'll end up with a bunch of backgrounds you can use on cards. Now look at that. See the darker in the background because I use that darker ink, and the raised area is the original ink color.
That's gorgeous.
So there's so many different ways. This is one of those techniques you could do a whole class on.
Well, and just playing around with your different sandwiches too, like figuring out what's the best for your 2D folders, what's the best for your 3D folders.
And you can make notes of it, make notes on your embossing folder. Here I used a Brayer and white pigment ink on the raised area. Now look at that.
Oh, gorgeous.
Isn't that fun?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Wow.
So this is one of those techniques you'll just need to play around with. It's going to take a little bit of learning. Oops, I just tore the back of this. I glue that back in, but there we go.
I mean, I feel like I've only done color with embossing folders maybe once or twice in my 6 years of card making. And I don't know why I have not done this much, because I think this is really cool. Really cool.
It's a game changer. I mean, you can get a ton of different results.
Oh,
Lisa, so many different ways.
The ink, I think Lisa Pop, I think that's the ink stand. Jen, did you have your ink pad?
Yes.
Ink stand? Yeah.
This white, it's an ink stand. It's great to hold your ink pad in place while you're working. I use it all the time, as you can tell. It's a fantastic. Brian Loveland, a crafter who's in the comments, actually, is the creator. So you're supporting a crafter with a brilliant idea.
And they're well loved. They're well loved. Definitely.
All right. Okay. So there you go. I mean, lots of different things you can do with this technique.
Great. I love it. Whew. All right.
That's my favorite technique. I don't know.
It's so great, Jennifer. I love it. Whew.
All right.
All right. Wow.
Are we sweating yet?
I am. You know what? I'm not sweaty. I'm not sweaty at all. And that's a good sign, my friends, because it's time to move on to ink splatter. Okay. How's everyone doing out there?
This is an easy, relaxing technique, this next one.
It is. This is so easy. So let me go back to my table. And here's my little friend, right, that we're going to make today. All you need for this is some kind of a box. For sure, you do need a box. But what we're going to start with is a little ink blending. Oh my goodness, I have, hold on a second. I have to wipe up my, I have ink in places that I didn't know existed. All right, here we go. So we're going to do an ink blend first on this, and you can do whatever you want. That's the beautiful thing about this. I have, again, I chose some Gina K Designs colors for this, but I am still working in sort of these cool, well, pink into green, or into blue into purple. And that's where we're starting today. So I'm going to, again, grab, and I'm using my ink stand. So you can see that right there. The ink stand has little rubber feet on it, which is nice because it can hold your piece in place, or hold your ink stand. Mine sometimes slides because I keep such a clean work surface. Please don't judge me. I can't help it. I clean after I craft. Okay. So it doesn't matter what you have. I want you to grab a brush, grab some inks, and we're going to make a panel to splatter onto. All right, loading up. And for this, it's not about being the most beautiful blend on the planet. You just want to get color. And so, and you can do it however you like, whatever colors you want to do today. Some people have their go-tos. And I will tell you, this is not necessarily one of my go-to combos, but I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. Vicki, we're starting out with Dusty Rose from Gina K. That's my pink. Okay, Dusty Rose. And just lay some down, okay? And then we're going to bring in Sea Glass. Now for this little overlap, I don't want to overlap it too heavy, but I'm just going to do a little I really love the overlap from sea glass into the lilac, but again, whatever, whatever you got. Oh, Elle Kelly, I'm not going to tell you about my floor because then you would see me in a whole different light. All right, we're just going to come in here. I'm going to keep this more in the center. And again, you don't have to worry at all that your blend doesn't look good. This is just meant to get some color down, okay? And I'm only going to overlap that pink a little. I do like that transition. And you can go back over any other area like that. But I want to make sure that all bands of color are represented. Oh, look at, I've got ink splotches everywhere. This is perhaps the messiest I've ever been, and I feel great. I've never felt better. I also texted my husband during the last segment and asked him to bring me some fresh coffee. And he replied, well, I'm at this so-and-so coffee shop. It'll cost $7.99 and I'll be there in about an hour. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dan, you are the best. Okay. All right. And my third color is medium lilac. And I have a purple brush. All right. So the idea here is just to have something to splatter on. Okay. Oh, I didn't see Jen's break sign. I wasn't looking. Did you put something funny up there, Jen?
It said I was on a potty break. I
literally had a sign that I put up earlier that just said bio break. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of you, if you saw that come in, you probably thought you're the fastest bio break person in the land. And that would be accurate. I really am.
Same.
I don't have time. All right. We're just bringing this in because my hope with my tree is that I'm going to get a little bit of everything, right? I wanted to get, and you could make your bands even tighter if you like, but we're just making a blend. And Gina's inks do smooth out, right? They're going to look smoother over time. It's just a basic blend. So hopefully,
did Dan bring you coffee?
No, he's at a coffee shop. He's at a coffee shop in St. Paul because he wanted to go get work done because sometimes he has trouble focusing at home, probably because I talk too much. Okay. So any blended panel, right? It's not about the blended panel today. Today, it's about the splatter or spatter. I don't know. There shouldn't be a debate out there over what it's called, but it has popped up. But it's splatter, spatter, whatever floats your boat. That's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to do. Okay. Now, how many of you have a box to splatter into? Because that's going to be an important part of this, partly because, you know what, the splatter goes everywhere. So I'm going to show you a couple things. Number one, I have the Tim Holtz Splat Box, but any box will do. I bought this because I like that it has a high back like that, just because I work right in front of a computer when I'm filming and live streaming, and so I wanted to protect my computer. However, I also take this lovely dish rag and I throw it over my computer, and it never fails. When I splatter, when I'm done, it's everywhere, okay? And you just can't get away from it. So what I'm using today is an acrylic ink. You can use anything here. You can use a re-inker. You can use water. You can use shimmer spray. You can use the Tim Holtz mica distress sprays. Whatever you have to spatter on, you are going to be good because it's going to look different every time. And I do have some samples that I'm going to show you. And then you need a cheap brush, okay? Cheap brush, and then bring out your acrylic block. I keep one that I use for this all the time just because then I don't worry if it doesn't get too clean. I also recommend fan brushes. This is a really great tool, but not everyone has one. But I will say this, the Royal and Langnickel Zen line is a great line of brushes. They are so affordable. I think this brush is like $6.99 or $7.99. It's just really affordable. For most of what we do as crafters, it's going to be great. So this paint here, it's a liquid acrylic. And it's great. It's really goopy. So I'm about to get a little wild here. Okay, the goat and the float moves the boat. Thank you. That was hilarious. Okay, putting a little down. Okay, and there's chunks of paint falling off. Now here's my big fancy tip. So you get your brush. I like to put a little bit of water onto the brush first, just a little, just a spritz. Oh yeah, toothbrush works great for this too. And I'm going to pick this up. Now you can spatter many different ways. I tend to do it 2 ways, the finger tap and the finger tap, but they're 2 different kinds. But when I come in here, I start off to the side, then I come to my paper. The main reason, and then I switch to this technique, tap on the finger. It kind of hurts over time. So if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. I'll show you another thing. Tap off here, some of it, then come on. Now, the only reason I tap off is so that I don't get giant blobbies. If you want bigger blobbies, right, then you come straight to your paper. Oop, I don't know where that one went. Okay. If you want them to be bigger, you can do that. But the nice thing about this, and let me zoom in here a little, these little brushes give such a nice little feathery sort of light snow. And that's what I like with a smaller brush. Okay. And Jen said, maybe I'm a little pixely right now. It'll come back. I promise. Jen, can you see me? I'm spattering my little heart out over here. Okay, and it's probably my internet, so hold with me, friends.
It's back now. It's back.
Okay, it sometimes
it went for a potty break.
It went for a bio break. Now look at this, and look at that spattery snow. The more you do it, the better it looks. It's so great for little backgrounds. I just think it's a wonderful thing. I can't stop spattering, mostly because I never did something like this in the olden days, but you can spatter with anything. Now let me wipe this off before we start again. I want to show you a couple little samples. Normally I go to the, what's it called? The kitchen sink downstairs. But you can spatter, of course, with anything you have. I just got to get this paint off before it dries. But I'll show you a few other panels here. Let me grab them. If I can find them. Oh, they were here. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So here's a few other examples, okay? This right here is using Gina K Glimmer Mist, and you're going to see it when it hits the light. Look at that. Now, for this, all I did was I took my brick, shook up some of this stuff. So any shimmer mist you have will work. You shake it up, you take the top off, put a little on your block, pick it up with your brush, and spatter. And look at that. It's gorgeous.
Oh, then, that is pretty. That's the Gina Shimmer Mist?
The Gina K Glimmer Mist.
Oh, okay, look at that.
And now here's just an example of using some Brutus. Let me get in a little closer. This is just on white cardstock, but this is the aqua pigment from Brutus Monroe in Gilded. And this too gives you a great look on any cardstock. I do this on white a lot. But if you don't have any of those fancy inks, you can take any ink cube you have, right? Smush it down, pick it up with a wet brush, and just spatter it on for a tonal sort of variation. So there's just a lot of ways you can do that. So let's spatter together, Jen. What are you going to do? I'm very excited to see. And I think you're muted, but I could be wrong. Come back. There she is.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I'm not admitting to that. The cool thing about splatters, there's so many ways you can do this. Like that Perfect Pearl Water Mist, if you use this on the background she just did, it would react and leave shimmer. You can use any sprays for splatter or make your own color with an ink pad smushed on glass and add some water. So many things you can do. I'm gonna show you a trick that I haven't done in a long time, but it was a good chance to revisit it. Also, I find that if I hold up high, I get tinier splatter. If I hold closer, I get bigger. Sometimes but I always like to tap off first so I don't get those big globs, unless you want the big globs.
Yeah, some people, they want the big globs, and that's totally fine. I'm actually going to change my colors for this just for fun. I'm going to use Tide Pool. and bring some in. But yeah, now Jen, you're starting with your shapes.
Yep. Can do it either way.
Yep.
I am actually going to heat emboss my spatter, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a few here. I'm going to put some anti-static down first because I've been touching these. So I do anti-static.
I have paint on my hands. Help me.
And I'm just spraying water onto my desk here. So this is just plain water. Picking it up with a brush.
Oh, that's right. Plain water is awesome for this too on reactive surfaces.
And but this is just cardstock. This is blue cardstock. So you won't see the water at first.
Okay, now I know what you're doing. Yep.
And so I'm flicking on the water droplets.
This is very cool. You told me about this once and I've been meaning to try it.
All right. I'm just going to do one of these right now. You got to move a little quicker with this one, which would be great if I had my supplies ready. And I'm going to add silver embossing powder.
Ooh.
So now the silver embossing powder sticks wherever there was water. And what's cool about this is, say I don't want some of the splatter like right here, I can wipe it away. Yeah. Or if I want, like if I had a sentiment, say there's a sentiment right here, I could just wipe all of the powder from that area there.
I love that.
And now I can heat set this.
I think on this one, I am going to do some glimmer mist because I think that would be so pretty on these tones. And the thing is too, you can just, anytime you spatter water on, that's, if you've got your water reactive inks, it's just going to be so cool. Oh my gosh.
So see, I wiped it away there. So now I could do my sentiment. So if you've ever wanted your splatter to be more controlled, this is an easy way to do it.
That is really fun. I have never done that. All right. Oh, look at that panel. That's pretty. All right. I'm going to bring my box back and throw on, where did I put my box now? There you are. Come here, you little leechkin. Okay. Now for this one, I am going to use the shimmer. So let's see here. I think with spattering, and it's so funny because as I'm looking down at my manicure, I'm like, wait a minute, there's paint. It happened. Kathy got messy. There's also spatter everywhere that I'm looking right now, but that's okay. And I'm going to show you with this one, I'm going to do the fan brush just to show you the difference. So take your shimmery glimmery, whatever you have. And you have to shake this stuff pretty well. Dana has splatter everywhere. And I'm just going to, I'm just going to put a tiny bit on my block. You don't need much. Close it. And also, where's my extra cube? I thought I had an extra cube. You can also, here, we're going to tap this. This is very liquidy, so you don't need to wipe it down. But you can also just tap off your brick, right? I don't like doing it this way because it's harder for me to see what I'm doing, but it saves pain on your finger. And again, I think part of the reason I stay closer is because I'm afraid of spatter getting everywhere. But once this starts to dry, it is gorgeous. Look at that. And again, with uncontrolled spatter, right, it's going to be wherever it goes. Jennifer's method is a little more controlled, so I like that.
It's good to have different options depending on what you're doing,
Yeah, look at that. And Jennifer's shapes are all cut and ready to go. But that is our spatter or splatter.
And this one is white embossing. So Carly asked, why does the embossing powder stay with just water? So when I splattered the water on. While it was still wet, I added the embossing powder, and the embossing powder sticks to that water. Now, if I let it dry on its own without heat setting it, it would just wipe off when it's dry. But since I heat set it right away, the powder will attach to that cardstock. The water just goes away, evaporates, and it leaves the embossing powder behind. So yes, I just flicked with water, splatter, however you want, add that embossing powder right away, heat set right away, and it's just another way to do splatter. But I personally think the best way to do splatter is what Kathy did, where you have a background of ink that reacts with the water. It's gorgeous.
So fun. All right. That was great. I love the splatter. And Jen, I loved seeing that technique. I'm going to have to try that sometime.
It's fun, you know, it's all about using your supplies. And if you want your splatter to be sparklier, use sparkle embossing powder.
Yep. Absolutely.
Somebody said their embossing powder, Nikki said her embossing powder went outside of the water droplets. Make sure you do your anti-static powder tool first so that it doesn't stick on the background. You know, that you always do that when you heat emboss. All right. Are we doing good? We are so good on time. We have one more technique left, and then we get to eat.
And then we get to eat and come back and watch all the good fun this after, in the next session. So
yeah,
I'm going to have to do a little cleanup so that I'm ready to create this afternoon.
Well, I'm gathering right now. So you guys can all gather your supplies for the next one.
And I'm cleaning some of the spatter because the anal retentive crafter in me is like, you need to get some of this clean before you start the next technique. Okay. Lovely.
No, the embossing powder, you heat set it. So you splatter your water, put on your embossing powder, right away heat set it. And that will cause you to get those little shimmery splatters with water. And again, remember, you can go back and watch it again. I know we're sharing so many things here, but the whole idea here, I think of this, it reminds me of my engineering classes in college. Oh gosh, were they awful? Anyway, it was always the teacher would teach a concept and then you do a lot of examples, right? And then you go home and I'd have to do every example in the book, like rework them. And that was how I got through. But so it's about watching different ideas, picking what you want to try and go and do more of that. All right. Okay, so we got one more here. We're going to do, this is just a fun reminder to use your shimmers and your shiny products in a fast way. I know foiling is very big right now, and there's different machines for that. There are different products available, shimmer paste and all that. I just wanted to show you some basic things you can do with shimmer and shine using double-sided tape. Keep in mind, you could die cut a shape from double-sided adhesive sheet, but I'm just using 1/4-inch tape for today. But really, any adhesive will work with these techniques. So I'm going to demonstrate 5 different forms of shimmer and shine that are easy to do. They're very quick. However, when we go back and do this together, just use whichever one you want or whichever ones you have. You can do multiple of the same. So I'm going to put down first my strips. Actually, I'll go do them as we go. I'm going to start with this top one here. And this one is foil, but you're not going to need a machine. So I have Altenew double-sided tape. There's a lot of great double-sided tapes out there. Lawn Fawns is really good too. And I'm going to put a stripe down. I think I'm going to do angled today. Really doesn't matter. I think I'll do angled this time. So I'm putting this down, and since I've already die cut mine, which I recommend doing here is have your die cut piece, do your die cut shape before the technique. I'm just going to use my scissors to cut off the extra. So we just have a piece of adhesive going straight across here. All right, now there are different types of foil out in this world. Let me get a box of the other kind. Just one second. And it can be kind of confusing. There are different types of foil out there. There are foils that are meant to use with a hot foil system, like the Glimmer machine from Spellbinders. This, you need to have that machine and the pressure from your die cut machine to work, okay? This is not the kind you use with a laminator, but this works for today's technique. There is another type of foil. This is a foil that it works with like a heat transfer. This is Gina K's. ThermoWeb has lots of options, but Decofoil is a good brand, fancy foil. This is the type you use with a laminator. So there are two different processes for doing foil, two different types of foil. Now, there are lots of videos out there on how to use these two different types. The good news is for what we're doing today, you can use either. You can use either. And what we're doing today is an excellent way to use up those tiny little scraps that you have left over after you do whatever foiling process you want to do. Like I have all these little thin strips like this. Save those because it works with what we're doing today. So either foil, I think I'm going to demonstrate first with this fancy foil from Gina K. Again, this is the kind you would use with like her laminator, or you would use, or with her fuse system, or you'd use with a laminator. Again, you can also use this foil with adhesive as we're doing today. You can also use it with the Duotone, what's it called? Duo transfer gel. That would work with this if you wanted to do stencils. So many things, but what I wanted to share with you today is easy peasy. So this again is Gina's foil. I have my adhesive down here. This is one of those things that's great with the scrap. I'm just going to lay this, I took the release paper off, lay my foil down, press it down with your fingers as firmly as you can, peel off. And there you end up with your foil stripe. So this can be done with any scraps. So save those little scraps that you have left over from Gina's, or, you know, when doing any kind of technique with a laminator. Okay. And look at that shine. All right, now let's do the next one. And this time I'm going to use the glimmer foil. So that's the type that's meant to go with the foiling machine. I'm going to put another line of tape down. Cut off the excess. So this is great for using scraps. I didn't have a smaller scrap of Gina, so I just cut one. But this is a scrap left over from glimmer foil. Okay, so this is the other type of foil. I put down another piece of tape. I'm going to put this on, press really firmly. You can use a bone folder if you want, or just use your own muscle. Press that down, then carefully remove. And there we have more foil. So this is great because you can do like a border on your card very easily using scraps. I can get two more out of this one, actually. You can do you can cut a mat for a panel on your card, cut a mat and just put it on the outside edge. And then it looks like you've matted with foil. If you pull off and maybe a little bit doesn't transfer, just press a piece back down. Some of the remaining foil press back down. But look at that shine. So this is a great reminder, no matter what type of foil you have, to use the leftovers this way with tape. I'm using Altenew double-sided tape, but you could use Lawn Fawn double-sided tape, any kind of double-sided tape you have. Kathy, what do you use?
I basically have I have three. I'm going to use the Sookwang tape, a score tape. Is that what it's called?
Oh, okay, perfect. Yep.
Yeah,
yep,
and
that works too.
Also have I have Simon Says stamp tape, and I have Gina K Designs has a really nice double-sided tape too. So it just depends, right?
Yep.
Basically whatever you have. And I'm just going to stick with the quarter tape because my shape is small.
And somebody asked, does this work with toner foil? Yes, this type that is done with the laminator or fuse system is toner foil. So yes, that'll work. Does it work with the Cricut Joy foil? I'm not sure because I don't have that, but give it a test. You just need a little strip to try it.
Yeah,
give it a try. Sticky embossing powder work. Yes, but this is much easier.
Oh yeah, this is so fast. It's so fast. Yeah, try the Cricut foil and see, because I'm sure foils they've got to be similar. I know that. Yeah, I'm going to use Gina K, her foil, the fancy foils, because that's what I have the most of.
That's what you have. Yep.
Yep. So I'm going to make
every time you foil, you have leftovers left over. You know.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about Gina K shaker strips. You should. You should be able to use the foil on a shaker strip or a foam tape if you really press it down first and then carefully pull it back. It should work. All right, so now for my next one, I'm using double-sided tape here. Got a strip down there. Now for this one, you definitely want a strong adhesive because we're going to use glitter. Now I know there are a billion and one types of glitter out there, and we want to make sure we put them to good use. I'm using Hero Arts Earth Safe glitter. This is one that is good for the environment. You'll notice it comes out kind of clumpy, but that's part of however they made it, so it's not bad. But all you have to do is kind of sprinkle it on. So whatever glitter you have, you can use here. Another thing is if you don't have any sparkly glitter, say you have sparkle embossing powder, you could put sparkle embossing powder over the tape and just not heat set it, and it would look like glitter. So I put the glitter on, and now I'm just going to rub that in with my finger. You can use a bone folder, whatever you want. Just press that on. Click off the excess, and then I can funnel this back in. Usually I use coffee filters, but I don't know. I'm using paper today, and I can put this all back in. Now, if you don't like glitter because it's a mess, highly recommend investing in Swiffer dusting cloths because this will pick up your glitter wonderfully and it traps it. You can use this over and over again. A lot of times I cut the Swiffer cloths into smaller strips. So they're like this because you really don't need a whole lot for each use and it just makes it go longer. But I have a full sheet that I'm using here. So I can wipe off the extra. So now there we have glitter, a glitter strip. Then the next thing I thought I'd demonstrate with is gilding flakes, or I don't know, there's a lot of different names for these. And I know not everybody has these, but if you're like me, in fact, Debbie just asked, will gilding flakes work? Yep. We're going to demonstrate that now. Not everybody has these. They can be, I forget about them, but the results can be absolutely beautiful, especially if you use a mix of different, like there are some mixes of gilding flakes. They can be a little tricky to work with because they want to fly everywhere. But I think it's fantastic.
Some somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yes. The ones I'm using today, make sure your fan is off before you use these. And you can see it's these thin flakes. Now I'm using all silver, but they have beautiful ones that are like mix of silver and gold, and it'll give you a fun marbly look. I recommend using that if you have it, but it's across the room. So I'm just going to stick with the silver. You can use whatever you have. If you have mica flakes, you can try that too. Or mica powder, definitely. This is all about trying those products. So I have my tape there. I'm just going to pick up, what I like to do is just take one like flake out. I got two, but that's fine. Close this up so it doesn't make a mess. So I'm using very little. And now I just grab this with my fingers and just kind of spread it, dab it, and spread it around. This will go everywhere. This stuff is, it is truly, if you don't like glitter, this stuff isn't for you because look at, see how it kind of flies around? But if you have a Swiffer dusting cloth, you can easily wipe that up. It'll grab all those. So I press this down. Now, there are a few ways you can remove the excess. If you have like a rough sponge, that works. Or if you have like a little sander like this, you can sand off the excess and then just wipe it clean. And there you have a gilding flake strip. Yeah, Christina probably will not do this because she won't like the mess. I don't know. I think she's okay with messes, just not on her hands.
See,
that's
but
my
this
guess.
is such a, the foil, Jennifer, is such an easy, controlled
foil. So
way.
Easy, yes.
And like you said, the scraps.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. Oh my gosh, it comes right off. Like you don't even.
Yep. And look at that
amazing.
small piece that you're using. That small piece of foil.
It's so tiny.
All right. And then the last one that I was going to do as a reminder, and again, do whatever ones float your boat. you know, whatever works for you. For this one, I'm using tape again, and I'm going to put down silver embossing powder. So you can heat emboss a strip this way. So say you want to create a heat embossed border that matches the heat embossed sentiment. You can do this. So I just use the tape, and onto that tape, I put the embossing powder, and now I'll heat set it. Erica said mica powder looks so pretty. Perfect. Yes, you can use a Q-tip to spread things around if you don't want to deal with it getting stuck to your fingers. So I used regular silver embossing powder there, but you could definitely use like a sparkle embossing powder, or sprinkle a few different powders on to get a variation. But all of these were done very quickly using a double-sided tape.
Oh,
okay. Oh, that's fun. Look at that.
That's fun.
This is one of
you don't need to burnish as hard as I was burnishing at all. You don't need to do that. Your finger is literally enough pressure, because if you burnish too hard on foil, it can kind of mar the foil a little bit.
Yes. Will flock glitter work with this technique? It should absolutely work with this technique. And with the tape that I've used this technique in the past, which are Lawn Fawn, Score tape, and Altenew, I never had any bubbling of the tape. So it should be, I did in heat emboss that. Yep, I added heat. So I put the tape down, added the embossing powder, and then I heat set it for that last one there.
I love
and here's one that I made off screen. I just thought I'd show you. This one I put rows of tape all the way up against each other. Here I left gap. Here I put them right up against each other. And I did glimmer foil, glitter, glimmer foil, glitter. And I did this stripe piece, which will sit behind a white snowflake.
Oh, that's
so beautiful. You can cover a die cut shape this way, or use a big piece of double-sided adhesive and use your sparkles that way. And here on this one right here, I'll show you guys this later, but here, this is blue foil and silver glitter alternating. And again, it's using up those glitters that we've all been hoarding, right? And also using up those little scraps of foil. Now, as you guys play with this, we're going to be wrapping up soon, but as you play with this, I wanted to show you another fun thing that you can do. You can put down dot runner. So this dot runner puts down little dots of adhesive. You can take your foil. This works great with foil. Press it down, and you'll have little dots of foil left behind.
Oh, that's so cute.
So you can do this on a background. So it just does kind of like a little speckly silver. So many different things that you can do with that. Again, you can die cut a double-sided shape, and then you'd have a shape. Yes, one that's a great tip. Who said that? Evelyn. If you want to press something down, but you're worried about burnishing right on top, you can always flip over your project and apply some pressure, like with a bone folder from the back, and then it won't mess up what's on the front as much. Look at Kathy's forest.
I know it doesn't all coordinate together, but that, it's so
okay.
fun to see your shapes, and then just to remind yourself, oh, these are all techniques that I can do at any time.
There you go.
Oh.
So this particular technique, this is taking a supply that I'm guessing one of those supplies I used, you have a lot of, whether it's embossing powder, glitter, foil. It's about using what you got, especially those leftover pieces, in a simple way. This is really simple. You just use tape for it.
Right. Yeah. Yay.
So there you go. And look at the time. Look at the time, Kathy. Boom.
We just stuck the landing.
Nailed it.
10.0.
Hey. And if you knew how hard doing lives like this was for me, you'd understand how happy I am that we nailed it. However, if you got a question, throw it at us now. We'd be happy to answer it. So
Yes,
this was the first 6 techniques.
Yes. And I'm so excited also to eat food.
Yeah, food's good. Food's
I didn't eat breakfast this morning and I'm like, my stomach, I kept hitting the mute button because I'm like, if they can hear that, that's not good. That is not good.
That's all right. That's all right. Anybody got any questions?
Thanks.
I mean,
Kelly.
think about what today is really about. We called it relax and rewind. The relax part is that we're not working on final projects today. We're working on techniques and getting dirty with those techniques. And then the rewind part is to remind us of techniques that we often forget about. Also to rewind and use products we haven't used in a while and come up with something different for them. Yep. So that's what today was all about. Kristen asked, can you die cut after putting down foil strips with tape? I recommend, that's why I'd recommended you die cut first, because your plates, like, you know how plates get kind of scratched up, it might transfer some of that onto your foil. So I think it's best to die cut first, do the technique, and it'll give better results. But you can definitely try it that way. Somebody wanted to see my shirt. It says Mary. Mary. Do you have to be super careful with the heat gun so that you do not burn the other foils? I didn't have a problem with that. Make sure your heat gun is hot, as always. Give it a few seconds to heat up and just keep it moving. I didn't have any problems with the tape that I was using and the foil I was using. What heat gun? I think somebody asked, what heat gun do we use that's silent? I think our live streaming puts the sound down.
Yeah, the mics cut, they're smart mics and they always cut the sound down. So they're louder than what you see. But I've noticed that too. When I'm live, my mic starts out and then the audio gets dropped. So
yeah, mine's a regular old heat gun.
And mine's really
technology.
Quiet. The Ranger heated tool is really quiet, so it doesn't make much noise anyway. But
Judy, do I have any ideas for using Mylar sheets? I don't have Mylar sheets, so I'm not sure. If you can cut that with the trimmer, you could just cut strips and add that into like Kathy's technique. Use up, especially with cardstocks, like specialty cardstocks, glitter cardstocks, use those strips. I do not have an anti-static powder tool yet. What can I use for the afternoon? I'm going to let Dana and Christina address that when they get to anti-static powder tool. I think some people have used, what do they use? Kathy, do you know what you can? I'm not sure what it is.
Other than an anti-static tool?
Yeah.
Like cornstarch?
Yes, that's the one. I think you can use cornstarch, dryer sheets. Yes, talcum powder. There's some ideas with a paintbrush. Yep. And then different tapes have different results. One I can get more texture than others. Likely. And again, today we're talking about using the supplies you have. So try the different supplies. If you have different adhesives, try it with different adhesives. If you have different foils, try it with the different foils. And when you used embossing powder on your ornament, did you use the powder first? So for the heat emboss stripe, I put the tape down, I put the embossing powder on it, and I heat set it.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Cornstarch.
Already
I pulled that out of nowhere. No, I'm just kidding. I learned it somewhere away.
Now the next session starts at 1 o'clock. There will be a different link so that when you go back, it's not a long video. It'll be the 2 chunks. There'll be a different link. It's in the Facebook group or the email Christina sent out. And it'll be right away at 1. Dana and Christina will start doing their techniques very similar to what we've done. Yep. And Cindy, yes, you can ink blend over foil.
Yes, you can. And it looks beautiful.
Yep. Yes, it does. All right.
And Jean, there's one. Did you answer that question, Jen, from Jean? It was popped up there. It said something and now it's gone.
I don't see it.
Jean, I think it said, can you?
I'm not finding it. Jean. Oh, when you use embossing powder on the I did answer that one.
Oh, okay.
If you have any other questions, you can go into the Facebook group and leave them there. I'll try to check that after I take another potty break and eat something. But there you have it.
Kelly,
thank you so much.
Who knows? It's a lot of caffeine, or in Jen's part, not a lot of caffeine.
What was the question?
How are we both so consistently awesome?
Listen, everybody's awesome at different things. For where we're awesome here, we very badly lack in other areas of life.
Yes, cleaning my house. That's a good one.
Yes.
Not good.
That's on the top of my list. Okay. Thank you very much. We will be back at 1 o'clock.
All right, everyone, take a break,
Christina
get some sustenance, and we'll see you soon.